They said I was a liability, a performance failure. But the truth was far more complex. I was about to expose a $10 million corporate fraud that would shake the entire defense contracting industry. Catherine Riley wasn't just another middle-aged veteran. She was a decorated marine intelligence analyst who had spent 15 years serving her country, navigating complex geopolitical landscapes with precision and integrity. Her transition to civilian life at Sentinel Defense Technologies had seemed like a natural progression. Her military intelligence background made her an ideal candidate for their cybersecurity and strategic consulting division. The small office. In Colorado, Springs felt like an extension of her military service. Rows of cubicles filled with former military personnel, veterans who understood the meaning of mission and commitment. Catherine had always been meticulous, her reports crisp and detailed, her analysis cutting through complexities with the same sharp focus she'd developed during her tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. Her workspace reflected her personality, organized, disciplined with a few subtle touches that hinted at her journey. A framed photo of her Marine unit stood beside her computer, next to a well-worn notebook filled with meticulously handwritten notes. A small challenge coin from her last deployment sat as a quiet reminder of her military achievements. When she first joined Sentinel 3 years ago, the company had seemed like a perfect fit. They marketed themselves as a veteran-friendly organization, founded by former military leadership who understood the unique skills veterans brought to the corporate world. Catherine had been excited about the opportunity to continue serving, to use her skills in a different kind of battlefield, corporate intelligence and cybersecurity. Her first 2 years had been exceptional. Performance reviews praised her comprehensive threat assessments, her ability to identify potential security risks before they became critical issues. She had developed proprietary risk assessment models that impressed senior leadership, earning her several commendations and performance bonuses. But something changed 6 months ago. The atmosphere in the office became increasingly tense. Colleagues who had been open and collaborative grew guarded. Meetings became shorter, more controlled. Catherine noticed subtle shifts in project allocations, in the way senior management discussed certain contracts. Her direct supervisor, Mark Henderson, a former Navy SEAL, began giving her increasingly cryptic assignments. Reports that once required detailed analysis were now accompanied by vague instructions. "Just focus on these specific parameters," he would say, his tone leaving no room for discussion. When Catherine's latest comprehensive threat assessment raised red flags about potential financial irregularities in a major defense contract, she was met with unexpected resistance. Her detailed report, which typically would have been welcomed, was dismissed without explanation. Mark called her into his office, his demeanor cold and professional. "Your recent work doesn't meet our current standards," he said, sliding a performance improvement plan across the desk. "We're concerned about your ability to work within our current framework." The document was a shock. Nothing in her previous evaluations suggested any performance issues. Her track record was impeccable. 15 years of military service, multiple commendations, a graduate degree in strategic intelligence from Georgetown. The performance plan felt like a calculated attempt to marginalize her. Catherine knew the corporate world was different from military service, but the sudden shift felt deliberate. Her instincts, honed through years of intelligence work, told her something was fundamentally wrong. The report she had submitted, detailing potential financial discrepancies in a $50 million defense contract, seemed to have triggered this sudden change. Her colleagues, once supportive, now avoided eye contact. The veteran-friendly environment she had praised seemed to evaporate overnight. She was being isolated, her access to critical projects gradually reduced. When the termination notice arrived 3 weeks later, citing consistent performance failures, Catherine knew this was more than a simple personnel decision. Her military training had taught her to look beyond the surface, to understand the broader context of any situation. The day she cleaned out her desk, she carefully copied digital Files, not out of malice but out of a deep-seated investigative instinct. Something didn't add up. The financial irregularities she had noticed, the sudden change in her professional standing, the cryptic behavior of leadership, all of it formed a puzzle she was determined to solve. Little did Sentinel Defense Technologies know that the veteran they had just fired would become their most significant problem. Catherine Riley was about to begin an investigation that would unravel a conspiracy far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Her military training had prepared her for complex missions. This would be her most challenging one yet. The first weeks after her termination were a blur of uncertainty and mounting frustration. Unemployment benefits barely covered her modest expenses, and the job market for someone with her specialized background proved challenging. Each rejected application felt like another blow to her professional identity. Her small apartment in Colorado Springs became both a sanctuary and a war room. Pinned to a corkboard, the digital files she had carefully copied from Sentinel formed a complex web of interconnected documents. Bank statements, contract proposals, internal communication chains, each piece a potential thread in a larger narrative. Elena Rodriguez, Catherine's closest friend from her Marine intelligence days, became her primary confidant. A cybersecurity expert working for a private consulting firm, Elena understood the nuanced world of corporate intelligence. Late-night video calls became their strategy sessions, with Elena helping Catherine parse through the mountain of digital evidence. "Something's definitely off," Elena would say, zooming in on spreadsheets that seemed innocuous to the untrained. These financial transfers don't make sense. The routing, the timing, it's too precise to be random." Catherine's military training kicked in. She approached the investigation methodically, creating detailed timelines, cross-referencing dates, tracking the flow of money through complex corporate channels. Each evening, she would meticulously document her findings, building a case that was more than just a personal vendetta. It was about uncovering the truth. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While reviewing a series of contract proposals, Catherine noticed a pattern of slight discrepancies, subtle manipulations in billing codes, strategic placement of decimal points, routing of funds through a labyrinth of shell companies. These weren't simple accounting errors. They were deliberate mechanisms of financial deception. Her military intelligence background had trained her to recognize patterns of obfuscation. These financial maneuvers were too sophisticated to be accidental. Someone within Sentinel was systematically siphoning funds, creating an elaborate system of financial fraud that would make detection nearly impossible for an ordinary auditor. The more she investigated, the more complex the picture became. The $50 million defense contract she had initially flagged was just the tip of an iceberg. Her calculations suggested the total financial discrepancies could exceed $10 million, a staggering amount that implicated multiple levels of corporate leadership. Elena brought in Miguel Santos, a forensic accountant with a reputation for dismantling complex financial frauds. A veteran himself, Miguel understood the unique challenges faced by military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. His initial review of Catherine's documentation was telling. "This is beyond standard corporate misconduct," Miguel explained, during a late-night meeting in a nondescript coffee shop. "We're looking at a systematic approach to financial fraud. Someone has designed this to be nearly undetectable." The conspiracy seemed to reach deep into Sentinel's leadership. Mark Henderson, her former supervisor, appeared to be more than just a middle manager. Financial records suggested he was a key orchestrator, moving funds through a complex network of international accounts. Catherine's termination now made perfect sense. Her comprehensive threat assessment hadn't just been an inconvenience. It was a direct threat to an elaborate, fraudulent operation that had been running for years. The personal cost was significant. Her professional reputation was in tatters. Former colleagues avoided her calls. The veteran community, typically tight-knit and supportive, seemed hesitant to get involved. The potential fallout from challenging a major defense contractor was enormous. But Catherine wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every veteran who had been marginalized, every professional who had been silenced, every taxpayer whose money was being systematically stolen. Elena and Miguel helped her build a comprehensive dossier. Bank records, communication, logs, contract details. Each piece of evidence carefully documented, cross-referenced, verified. They knew that challenging Sentinel would require ironclad proof. "They'll try to discredit you," Miguel warned. "Corporate entities like this have entire legal teams designed to crush whistleblowers." Catherine understood the risks. Her military service had taught her that the most important battles were often fought not on battlefields, but in boardrooms and courtrooms. She had faced down threats in war zones. She would not be intimidated by corporate retaliation. As winter settled over Colorado Springs, Catherine continued her investigation. Each day brought new revelations, each document a potential key to unraveling the massive fraud. Her termination was no longer just a personal setback. It was the beginning of a mission to expose the truth. The $10 million fraud was about to meet its most formidable opponent, and Catherine Riley was just getting started. The harsh Colorado. Winter mirrored the cold reality Catherine now faced. Unemployment stretched into months, her savings dwindling, her professional network seemingly evaporating overnight. Each rejected job application felt like another blow, a systematic attempt to silence her and erase her professional credibility. Her small apartment became a war room of investigation. Walls covered with interconnected documents, digital forensics spread across multiple monitors, each screen a window into the complex web of corporate deceit she was unraveling. The meticulous organization was pure military intelligence. Nothing was left to chance, every detail meticulously documented. Financial pressure mounted. Catherine's military disability benefits and sparse freelance consulting work barely covered basic expenses. The stress of potential financial ruin was a constant companion, a weight that would have crushed a less determined individual. But she had survived combat zones, navigated complex intelligence missions. This was another mission, another battle to be fought. The breakthrough came through an unexpected channel. Thomas Green, a junior accountant at Sentinel who had worked on the same defense contracts, reached out anonymously. A series of encrypted emails revealed he had noticed similar irregularities, but feared speaking out. His insider information provided crucial missing pieces to Catherine's investigation. "They've been cooking the books for years," Thomas wrote, in a carefully worded message. "The $50 million defense contract is just the beginning. There are at least 3 other major contracts with similar financial manipulations." Catherine's network of veteran contacts proved invaluable. Elena Rodriguez leveraged her cybersecurity connections, while Miguel Santos began building a legal strategy. They understood the magnitude of what they were facing, a systemic fraud that extended far beyond a single corporation. Local veteran support groups became an unexpected source of strength. While some initially kept their distance, fearing potential professional repercussions, others rallied behind Catherine. They recognized the broader implications of her investigation. This wasn't just about one woman's career, but about integrity within the defense contracting industry. The psychological toll was significant. Sleepless nights became the norm. Catherine found herself reliving moments from her military service, drawing parallels between the strategic challenges she faced now and the complex missions she had undertaken in military intelligence. The skills that had made her an exceptional analyst were now her greatest weapon. Medical records became a critical piece of the puzzle. Catherine discovered a pattern of health insurance claims that didn't align with standard corporate practices. False medical billing, inflated treatment costs, phantom patient records. Each discovery added another layer to the fraud investigation. Her military training taught her that no battle is won without a comprehensive understanding of the terrain. She mapped out Sentinel's corporate structure like she would have mapped a military operation. Leadership connections, financial flows, contractual relationships, nothing was left unexamined. The personal cost was immense. Professional relationships dissolved. Former colleagues at Sentinel maintained a conspicuous silence. Her performance review, carefully preserved, became a key piece of evidence demonstrating the company's attempt to discredit her before she could expose their fraudulent activities. Legal challenges seemed insurmountable. Sentinel's legal team was formidable, with resources that could easily crush an individual whistleblower. Catherine knew she was facing a David versus Goliath battle, but her military background had taught her that impossible odds were just an invitation to strategic thinking. Miguel Santos brought in additional legal expertise. Pro bono lawyers specializing in whistleblower protection saw the potential significance of Catherine's case. Each document, each piece of evidence was carefully vetted, building a case that would be impossible to dismiss. The psychological warfare was intense. Anonymous attempts to discourage her investigation began to surface. Subtle threats, digital intrusions, attempts to discredit her professional reputation. Catherine recognized these as standard intimidation tactics. Her military intelligence background had prepared her to recognize and counter such strategies. Elena's cybersecurity expertise became crucial. She helped Catherine protect her digital evidence, creating multiple secure backups, using encryption, techniques that would challenge even sophisticated corporate investigators. Each piece of evidence was carefully preserved, with multiple fail-safes to prevent potential tampering. Catherine's support network became her lifeline. Weekly veteran support group meetings provided emotional sustenance. These were people who understood sacrifice, who knew what it meant to stand up for something larger than oneself. Their support was more than moral. It was a testament to the unbreakable bond of those who had served. As winter gave way to early spring, the investigation reached a critical point. The evidence was mounting, the picture of systematic fraud becoming increasingly clear. Catherine knew she was approaching a point of no return, a moment when the truth would have to be confronted, regardless of the personal or professional consequences. The $10 million fraud was no longer just a number. It was a betrayal of trust, a violation of the very principles Catherine had sworn to protect during her military service, and she was determined to expose every single detail, no matter the cost. The moment of transformation came on a crisp April morning. Catherine's anger, carefully contained and strategically channeled, erupted into purposeful action. No longer would she be a passive victim of corporate manipulation. She was going to fight back with every resource at her disposal. Her initial strategy meeting with Miguel Santos and Elena Rodriguez took place in a secure, nondescript conference room at a veteran-owned law firm. Pinned to the wall, a massive timeline documented Sentinel's fraudulent activities. Red strings connected financial transactions, highlighting the intricate web of deceit they had uncovered. "We need more than just evidence," Catherine declared, her Marine Corps training evident in her precise, calculated approach. "We need a comprehensive strategy that will not only expose the fraud, but also prevent future similar misconduct." Thomas Green, the junior accountant who had initially reached out, became a crucial insider source. His documentation of internal communications revealed a systematic approach to financial manipulation that went far beyond simple accounting errors. Emails, internal memos, financial transfer records, each piece built a damning narrative of corporate malfeasance. Catherine's approach was multifaceted. She simultaneously prepared for legal action, media exposure, and regulatory intervention. Each potential avenue was meticulously researched, each potential obstacle anticipated and planned for. The skills that had made her an exceptional military intelligence analyst now served her in this new battlefield. The Veterans Affairs Office became an unexpected ally. When Catherine presented her preliminary findings, several VA investigators became interested. They recognized the broader implications of her investigation, a potential systemic issue affecting defense contractors and potentially compromising national security interests. Financial forensics became her weapon of choice. Catherine worked with Miguel to develop a comprehensive analysis that would withstand the most intense corporate legal scrutiny. They reconstructed financial flows, identified phantom transactions, and mapped out the intricate mechanisms of the fraud. Her network of veteran contacts proved invaluable. Former military colleagues from various branches began reaching out, offering support, sharing similar stories of corporate misconduct. What had begun as a personal investigation was transforming into a collective effort to expose systemic corruption. Local investigative journalists became interested. A feature in the Colorado Springs Gazette brought national attention to Catherine's investigation. The story of a decorated veteran fighting corporate fraud resonated with a public increasingly skeptical of corporate ethics. The personal cost was significant. Catherine faced constant attempts at intimidation. Anonymous threats arrived through various channels. Her digital communications were monitored. Old performance reviews were selectively leaked, attempting to discredit her professional reputation. But each attempt to silence her only strengthened her resolve. Catherine understood that true accountability required unwavering commitment. Her military service had taught her that the most important battles are often fought through persistence, intelligence, and an unbreakable sense of purpose. Elena's cybersecurity expertise became crucial in protecting their investigation. She created multiple secure communication channels, developed encryption protocols, and ensured their evidence remained safe from corporate interference. Each digital footprint was carefully managed, each piece of evidence meticulously preserved. The turning point came unexpectedly. A series of leaked internal documents from a disgruntled Sentinel employee provided the smoking gun they needed. Financial records, internal communications, contract proposals, the documentation painted a clear picture of systematic fraud that extended far beyond initial estimates. Catherine's anger transformed into a strategic mission. This was no longer just about her personal career or reputation. It was about exposing a systemic failure that affected veterans, taxpayers, and the entire defense contracting industry. Each piece of evidence was a weapon, each document a potentially devastating revelation. Support from the veteran community grew exponentially. Professional networks, veteran support groups, and military associations began rallying behind her. What had started as an individual investigation was becoming a collective movement against corporate corruption. The financial implications were staggering. Initial estimates of $10 million in fraud seemed conservative as more evidence came to light. The true scale of the misconduct was far more extensive, potentially involving hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions. Catherine understood the risks. Corporate legal teams would fight back with everything they had. She would be painted as a disgruntled former employee, her reputation potentially destroyed. But she had faced down greater challenges in military combat zones. This was another mission, another opportunity to serve. As spring turned to early summer, Catherine and her team prepared for the most significant confrontation of their lives. The evidence was compiled, the strategy was set. Sentinel defense. Technologies had no idea what was coming. The fight for accountability was about to begin. The first official salvo was launched through the Securities and Exchange Commission. Catherine's meticulously prepared dossier landed on the desk of a senior investigator specializing in corporate fraud. Years of military intelligence training had taught her that strategic information deployment was as crucial as the information itself. Federal investigators descended on Sentinel defense technologies like a coordinated military operation. Search warrants executed simultaneously across multiple offices, digital forensics teams combing through servers, financial records carefully extracted and secured. The company's leadership found themselves caught in a web of their own making. Mark Henderson, Catherine's former supervisor, became the primary focus of the initial investigation. His carefully constructed professional facade began to crumble, under intense scrutiny. Bank records revealed a complex network of offshore accounts, suspicious real estate purchases, and financial transactions that raised multiple red flags. The veteran community became an unexpected, powerful ally. Professional networks, military associations, and support groups began sharing Catherine's story. What had started as one woman's fight against corporate fraud transformed into a collective movement exposing systemic misconduct in defense contracting. Elena. Rodriguez leveraged her extensive cybersecurity connections to create a comprehensive digital trail. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented, encrypted, and backed up through multiple secure channels. They understood that corporate entities would fight back with every resource at their disposal. Congressional hearings became inevitable. Catherine was called to testify, her military dress uniform a powerful visual reminder of her service and integrity. She presented her findings with the same precision she had once used in military intelligence briefings. No emotion, just cold, hard facts that painted a devastating picture of corporate malfeasance. Thomas Green, the junior accountant who had initially provided insider information, became a crucial witness. His testimony revealed the intricate mechanisms of the fraud, showing how seemingly minor accounting manipulations had been systematically used to siphon millions of dollars. The media narrative began to shift. What had initially been portrayed as a disgruntled ex-employee's complaint was now recognized as a comprehensive exposure of large-scale corporate fraud. Major news networks began in-depth investigations, each report adding another layer of credibility to Catherine's claims. Legal challenges came from multiple directions. Sentinel's legal team mounted an aggressive defense, attempting to discredit Catherine's investigation. But each attempt backfired, further exposing the depths of the company's misconduct. The more they fought, the more evidence came to light. Financial. Forensics experts brought in by federal investigators began unraveling the complex financial mechanisms. The initial $10 million estimate proved conservative. Preliminary findings suggested the total fraud could exceed $50 million, spanning multiple years and involving multiple levels of corporate leadership. Catherine's personal sacrifice became a powerful narrative. Her willingness to risk everything, her career, her financial stability, her professional reputation, resonated with veterans and civilians alike. She became a symbol of accountability, of standing up against systemic corruption. Government. Contract review boards launched comprehensive investigations into Sentinel's other defense contracts. The ripple effect was immediate and far-reaching. Other defense contractors began internal reviews, fearing similar exposures. Miguel Santos worked tirelessly on the legal strategy. Whistleblower protection laws became a crucial component of their approach. They weren't just fighting a single corporate entity. They were challenging an entire system of corporate misconduct. The psychological warfare intensified. Anonymous. Attempts to discredit Catherine continued. Digital intrusions, subtle threats, attempts to manipulate her personal narrative. But each attempt only strengthened the resolve of Catherine and her support network. Veterans from across the country began sharing similar stories. What had seemed like isolated incidents now appeared to be a systemic issue within defense contracting. Catherine's investigation became a catalyst for broader change, encouraging other potential whistleblowers to come forward. Federal investigators uncovered a network of complicit individuals within Sentinel. It wasn't just a few bad actors, but a systematic approach to corporate fraud that had been carefully cultivated over years. Each layer of investigation revealed more complexity, more depth to the misconduct. The financial implications were staggering. Pension funds, government contracts, taxpayer money. The fraud had touched multiple aspects of the economic ecosystem. Catherine's investigation was no longer just about one company, but about systemic accountability. As summer approached, the full scale of the investigation became clear. Sentinel Defense Technologies was facing potential criminal charges, massive financial penalties, and complete corporate restructuring. The company that had once seemed untouchable was now fighting for its very survival. Catherine understood this was more than a personal victory. This was about restoring integrity to a system that had lost its way. Her military service had taught her that true leadership meant standing up for what was right, regardless of the personal cost. The systemic confrontation was just beginning, and Catherine Riley was ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of her whistleblowing consumed Catherine in ways she had never anticipated. Professional isolation became her constant companion. Job interviews evaporated. Recruiters who had once eagerly sought her expertise now avoided her calls. The corporate world's unspoken blacklist was swift and merciless. Financial ruin seemed inevitable. Savings dwindled rapidly. Freelance consulting work dried up completely. Her carefully constructed post-military career lay in ruins, sacrificed on the altar of corporate accountability. Utility bills piled up. The threat of eviction loomed like a perpetual storm cloud. Her veteran support network became her lifeline. Groups that had initially been cautious now rallied around her. They understood the cost of standing up for integrity. Fundraisers were organized. Legal defense funds were established. Small acts of solidarity became her emotional sustenance. Depression crept in slowly, like a winter fog. Sleepless nights became the norm. Catherine would spend hours reviewing documents, questioning every decision, every piece of evidence. The weight of her investigation pressed down on her with suffocating intensity. Had she made a mistake? Was the personal cost too high? Medical challenges compounded her struggles. Stress triggered her old military-related health issues. Chronic pain from past injuries became more pronounced. Healthcare became an additional financial burden. The very system she had fought to protect now seemed indifferent to her suffering. Anonymous. Attempts to discredit her continued unabated. Social media campaigns painted her as a disgruntled employee, a troublemaker. Professional networking sites became minefields of subtle character assassination. Each negative comment chipped away at her resolve, testing the limits of her emotional resilience. Elena Rodriguez and Miguel Santos watched helplessly as Catherine spiraled. Their legal and technical support continued, but the personal toll was evident. Late-night strategy meetings became impromptu therapy sessions, attempts to keep Catherine from completely losing hope. The veteran community became her most significant support. Weekly support group meetings transformed from social gatherings to lifelines. Other veterans who had faced similar corporate betrayals shared their stories. They understood the unique psychological warfare of systemic retaliation. Thomas Green, the junior accountant who had initially provided insider information, faced his own professional crucifixion. His career in financial services was effectively destroyed. The two found solidarity in their shared experience of corporate retribution. Sentinel's legal team mounted an aggressive counteroffensive. Detailed character assassination attempts painted Catherine as an unstable, vengeful ex-employee. Professional reputation became a battlefield, with each side deploying increasingly sophisticated tactics of character destruction. Government investigations, while ongoing, provided little immediate comfort. The wheels of justice turned slowly. Catherine watched as corporate lawyers manipulated legal processes, turning her pursuit of accountability into a drawn-out legal nightmare. Her military service began to feel like a distant memory. The discipline, the sense of purpose that had defined her entire adult life, seemed to slip away. Each rejection, each closed professional door felt like another betrayal of her years of service and sacrifice. Family relationships became collateral damage. Her aging parents worried about her financial stability. Siblings offered support, but couldn't fully comprehend the depth of her professional struggle. The strain of her investigation created invisible fault lines in her personal relationships. psychological evaluation became necessary. Years of military service, combined with the stress of her investigation, had taken a significant mental toll. Therapy sessions became a critical lifeline, helping her navigate the complex emotional landscape of whistleblower trauma. Financial advisors painted a grim picture. Her retirement plans, carefully constructed over years of military service, were in shambles. The cost of her investigation seemed to grow exponentially with each passing month. Every financial safety net had been systematically dismantled. The media narrative began to shift. Initial support gave way to fatigue. Her story became just another corporate scandal, losing its initial impact. The 24-hour news cycle moved on, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Her military training became both a blessing and a curse. The discipline that had helped her build the case now threatened to consume her. Obsessive review of documents, constant vigilance, the inability to let go. These became her primary coping mechanisms. As autumn approached, Catherine found herself at the lowest point of her journey. The investigation that had begun with such promise now seemed like a personal catastrophe. The system she had fought to expose appeared unbreakable, her personal sacrifice seemingly in vain. Yet something remained. A spark of resilience, a fundamental belief that truth mattered. That accountability was worth fighting for. Even in her darkest moments, that core conviction refused to be extinguished. The painful descent continued. But Catherine Riley was not finished. Not by a long shot. The small cottage on the outskirts of Colorado Springs became Catherine's sanctuary of self-reflection. Rented with the last of her savings, it offered a quiet space to deconstruct not just the corporate fraud, but her entire life's narrative. Bare walls became a canvas for her introspection, covered with maps of her investigation, personal timelines, and moments of profound self-examination. Therapy sessions with Dr. Helena Ramirez, a veteran specialized psychologist, became her pathway to understanding. They didn't just discuss the corporate investigation, they explored the deeper patterns that had defined Catherine's life. Her military service, her approach to professional challenges, her fundamental beliefs about duty and sacrifice, all were meticulously unpacked. "You've always defined yourself through service," Dr. Ramirez would observe during their sessions. "Your identity has been a series of missions, the military, your career, this investigation. Each time, you've subsumed your personal needs to a larger purpose." The observation struck a profound chord. Catherine realized her entire adult life had been a series of external validations. Her military service, her professional achievements, her whistleblowing, all were attempts to prove her worth through external accomplishments. The pain of her current situation forced her to confront the internal landscape she had long ignored. Old military journals became a source of unexpected insight. Catherine spent weeks reviewing her writings from various deployments, from her initial military training to her final intelligence missions. Patterns emerged, a consistent tendency to prioritize institutional expectations over personal well-being. Her relationship with her parents came into sharp focus. Her father, a retired Air Force colonel, had always valued discipline and institutional loyalty above personal expression. Her mother, a military nurse, had modeled a life of silent sacrifice. Catherine now recognized how deeply these models had shaped her own approach to life and professional challenges. The investigation into Sentinel became a metaphor for her internal struggle. Just as she had methodically dismantled the corporate fraud, she now began to deconstruct her own internal narratives. Each belief, each professional choice was examined with the same forensic precision she had applied to financial documents. Elena Rodriguez and Miguel Santos became more than just professional allies. They became mirrors, helping Catherine see aspects of herself she had long avoided. Late-night conversations moved beyond legal strategies, exploring the deeper psychological implications of her journey. Veteran support groups provided unexpected Insights. Hearing other veterans' stories of post-service challenges, of redefining identity beyond institutional roles, Catherine began to understand her experience was part of a broader narrative. She was not alone in her struggle to find meaning beyond prescribed roles. Financial advisor sessions became moments of profound personal accounting. Not just monetary calculations, but a comprehensive review of her life's investments: professional, personal, emotional. Each decision was examined, each sacrifice reevaluated through a lens of personal worth rather than institutional validation. Thomas Greene's ongoing friendship offered another perspective. As someone who had also sacrificed his professional career for integrity, he understood the complex emotional terrain of whistleblowing. Their conversations became a form of mutual healing, a recognition of the personal cost of systemic accountability. Meditation and mindfulness practices, initially suggested by her therapist, became transformative. For the first time, Catherine learned to sit with her discomfort, to observe her thoughts without immediate judgment. The military discipline that had once been her strength now found a more nuanced expression. Her investigation into Sentinel became a metaphorical journey inward. Each document, each piece of evidence was now seen not just as external proof, but as a reflection of broader systemic issues and her own internal patterns of behavior. Family dynamics came under scrutiny. Catherine began to understand how her relationship with her parents had shaped her approach to institutional loyalty. The unquestioning acceptance of hierarchical structures, the belief that personal sacrifice was the highest form of service, these were learned behaviors, not inherent truths. Physical health became a form of self-discovery. Years of ignoring her body's signals of pushing through pain and exhaustion were re-examined. Physiotherapy, nutritional counseling, holistic healing practices became part of her introspective journey. Writing became a critical tool of self-understanding. Catherine began journaling not as a mission log, but as a genuine exploration of her inner landscape. Each entry was an act of radical honesty, dismantling the carefully constructed narratives of her past. The veteran community became a source of collective introspection. Group therapy sessions, support networks, peer counseling, these became spaces of shared vulnerability. Catherine discovered that true strength wasn't about individual heroism, but about collective healing and understanding. Her definition of service began to transform. No longer was it about institutional loyalty or external validation. Service became about authentic integrity, about creating genuine value, about understanding the deeper connections between personal action and systemic change. As winter approached, Catherine realized the investigation into Sentinel was just one chapter. The real investigation was happening internally, a forensic examination of her own life, her beliefs, her fundamental understanding of purpose and worth. The painful descent had led her to this moment of profound self-discovery, and for the first time, she was truly ready to listen. Spring arrived with tentative promises of renewal. Catherine's approach to rebuilding was methodical, learned from years of military precision and recent introspective work. The first step was redefining her professional identity beyond the Sentinel investigation and her military service. A small consulting firm specializing in corporate ethics and veteran professional development reached out. They were impressed by her comprehensive investigation, seeing beyond the controversy to her exceptional analytical skills. The position wasn't just a job, it was an opportunity to transform her professional narrative. Elena Rodriguez helped Catherine redesign her professional portfolio. Each document became a testament to her skills: forensic analysis, strategic thinking, integrity. They reframed her whistleblowing not as a career-ending moment, but as a demonstration of exceptional professional courage and analytical capability. The Veteran Support Network became her most significant professional catalyst. Connections made through support groups, professional associations, and military networks began to see her as a resource rather than a liability. Speaking engagements emerged, universities, corporate ethics conferences, veteran transition programs, financial. Recovery began with small, deliberate steps. A modest consulting contract provided initial stability. Catherine worked with a financial advisor specializing in supporting veterans through professional transitions. Each payment, each budgeting decision became an act of rebuilding. Her cybersecurity certification, pursued during the most challenging months of her investigation, opened unexpected doors. Technology firms interested in corporate integrity and whistleblower protection began to recognize her unique skill set. The very skills that had exposed Sentinel's fraud became marketable professional assets. Thomas Green's own professional reinvention provided inspiration. He had transformed his experience into a consulting practice focused on financial transparency and ethical reporting. Their collaboration became a powerful narrative of professional resilience. Support group connections evolved into a professional network. Catherine began mentoring other veterans navigating complex professional challenges. Her experience became a roadmap for others facing systemic workplace obstacles. Each mentorship session was both a healing and a rebuilding process. Legal settlements from the Sentinel investigation provided a financial foundation. While not complete compensation for her professional losses, it offered breathing room. Catherine approached these funds strategically, investing in her professional development and future stability. Miguel Santos helped her develop a comprehensive professional strategy. They approached her experience not as a setback, but as a unique professional qualification. Corporate ethics consultancies, government oversight committees, veteran support organizations, all became potential professional pathways. Psychological healing ran parallel to professional reconstruction. Therapy sessions with Dr. Helena Ramirez focused on building a holistic sense of self beyond professional achievements. Catherine learned to define her worth beyond institutional validation or mission completion. Her writing became another avenue of professional expression. Articles about corporate accountability, veteran professional challenges, and systemic workplace reform began appearing in respected publications. Each piece was carefully crafted, turning her experience into a powerful form of professional advocacy. The veteran community became both a support system and a professional network. Catherine discovered a collective strength, veterans supporting each other's professional reinvention, sharing resources, creating opportunities. Her experience became part of a broader narrative of professional resilience. Technology skills became a critical component of her rebuilding strategy. Advanced cybersecurity certifications, digital forensics training, ethical hacking courses, Catherine approached skill development with her characteristic military precision. Each certification was a building block of her new professional identity. Speaking. Engagements at military bases, veteran transition programs, and corporate ethics conferences transformed her experience into a powerful educational resource. She wasn't just sharing a story of corporate fraud, she was providing a blueprint for professional integrity and systemic accountability. Her relationship with her family underwent a profound transformation. Her parents, initially worried about her professional standing, now saw her as a powerful advocate for systemic change. Family dinners became discussions about professional ethics, institutional accountability, veteran support. Financial planning took on a new dimension. Catherine worked with advisors to create a comprehensive strategy that balanced professional development, personal stability, and long-term financial health. Each decision was made with a newfound sense of personal agency. The Sentinel investigation, once a source of profound pain, became a professional credential. Corporate ethics consultancies, government oversight committees, veteran support organizations, all saw her unique experience as a valuable professional asset. Her military background, combined with her forensic investigation skills, created a unique professional profile. Catherine became sought after as a speaker, consultant, and expert in corporate accountability and veteran professional development. As summer approached, Catherine realized rebuilding wasn't about returning to her previous life. It was about creating something entirely new, a professional identity built on integrity, resilience, and authentic purpose. The gradual rebuild was more than a professional reconstruction. It was a complete reimagining of what was possible. Now, Congressional hearing room felt familiar yet fundamentally different. Catherine sat not as a victim, but as a catalyst for systemic change. Years of investigation, personal introspection, and professional rebuilding had transformed her from a whistleblower into a comprehensive systems analyst of corporate misconduct. Her research extended far beyond Sentinel defense technologies. The $10 million fraud was merely a symptom of a much larger systemic issue within defense contracting and corporate culture. Catherine began a comprehensive study of institutional failures, tracing patterns of misconduct through decades of corporate history. Collaboration with academic researchers became a critical component of her investigation. Universities specializing in organizational psychology and corporate ethics saw her work as a groundbreaking opportunity to understand systemic workplace corruption. Her military intelligence background provided a unique analytical perspective that traditional researchers lacked. The veteran community became a crucial source of insights. Countless stories of professional marginalization, corporate betrayal, and systemic challenges emerged. Catherine recognized that her experience was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern affecting transitioning military personnel. Psychological research revealed deeper layers of institutional dysfunction. The same hierarchical structures that created military efficiency often translated into corporate environments as toxic power dynamics. Whistleblower suppression, institutional loyalty over ethical considerations, systematic marginalization of critical voices. These were not bugs in the system, but features. Elena Rodriguez and Miguel Santos continue to support her broader research efforts. Their interdisciplinary approach combined legal expertise, cybersecurity insights, and systemic analysis. Each investigation peeled back another layer of institutional complexity. Thomas Green's financial forensics expertise provided critical technical support. Together, they developed analytical frameworks for identifying potential corporate fraud before it reached catastrophic levels. Their collaborative work began to interest government oversight committees and corporate ethics boards. Veteran support groups became research partners. Catherine developed comprehensive surveys and interview protocols, capturing the nuanced experiences of military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. The data painted a troubling picture of systemic professional challenges. Her own therapeutic journey informed the research methodology. Dr. Helena Ramirez helped her develop approaches that went beyond traditional investigative techniques, incorporating psychological insights into institutional behavior patterns. Congressional testimony became a platform for broader systemic critique. Catherine wasn't just presenting a case against Sentinel. She was exposing fundamental flaws in corporate accountability mechanisms. Her presentations combined forensic financial analysis with psychological and organizational insights. Legal reforms became a tangible goal. Working with veteran advocacy groups, Catherine helped draft proposed legislation to protect whistleblowers, improve corporate accountability, and create more robust oversight mechanisms for defense contractors. The root causes extended beyond simple financial misconduct. Catherine's research revealed complex intersections of institutional culture, psychological manipulation, and systemic power dynamics. Military training, corporate structures, financial incentives, each played a role in creating environments that enabled fraud. Professional development programs for veterans became a critical focus. Catherine recognized that preventing future misconduct required more than legal mechanisms. It needed comprehensive support systems that addressed the unique challenges faced by military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. Her own experience of professional reconstruction became a case study. Universities began incorporating her journey into courses on professional ethics, organizational psychology, and veteran transition programs. What had been a personal crisis became a comprehensive educational resource. Technological solutions emerged as a key area of investigation. Advanced data analysis, AI-driven fraud detection systems, blockchain-based accountability mechanisms. Catherine worked with tech experts to develop innovative approaches to corporate transparency. The financial industry began to take notice. Her forensic techniques for identifying systemic fraud caught the attention of regulatory bodies and corporate ethics departments. Speaking engagements at financial conferences transformed her from a whistleblower to a recognized expert in institutional accountability. Psychological research revealed the deeper mechanisms of institutional betrayal. The same adaptive skills that made veterans exceptional employees could also make them vulnerable to sophisticated manipulation. Catherine's work began to bridge critical gaps in understanding these complex dynamics. Her relationship with the veteran community deepened. What had begun as a personal investigation transformed into a comprehensive support and advocacy network. Each story shared, each experience documented became part of a larger narrative of systemic change. Government oversight committees began implementing recommendations derived from her research. Proposed legislative changes aimed to create more robust protections for whistleblowers, improve corporate accountability mechanisms, and address systemic vulnerabilities in defense contracting. As autumn approached, Catherine realized her investigation had become something far larger than a personal quest for justice. It was a comprehensive examination of institutional behavior, a blueprint for systemic transformation. The root causes of corporate misconduct were no longer a mystery. They were now a roadmap for meaningful change. The federal courthouse stood as a testament to the long journey of accountability. Catherine Riley sat among a packed gallery, watching as former Sentinel Defense Technologies executives faced the consequences of their systemic fraud. This was more than a legal proceeding. It was a moment of collective reckoning. Mark Henderson, her former supervisor, appeared diminished. The once confident executive now wore the weight of multiple federal indictments. His testimony revealed a complex web of corporate manipulation that extended far beyond the initial $10 million fraud Catherine had first uncovered. Legal proceedings became a comprehensive examination of corporate culture. Forensic financial experts, cybersecurity investigators, and institutional psychologists provided testimony that went beyond traditional criminal proceedings. They were mapping the intricate mechanisms of corporate misconduct. Thomas Green's testimony proved crucial. The junior accountant who had initially provided insider information became a key witness, his detailed documentation exposing the systematic nature of the fraud. His professional rehabilitation became a powerful narrative of integrity and resilience. Elena, Rodriguez, and Miguel Santos sat nearby, their professional collaboration having been instrumental in building the case. Years of careful investigation, forensic analysis, and legal strategy had culminated in this moment. Each piece of evidence, carefully preserved and meticulously documented, now told a comprehensive story of corporate malfeasance. The veteran community filled the courthouse benches. What had begun as Catherine's individual investigation had transformed into a collective movement for accountability. Veterans from various branches, each with their own stories of professional challenges, watched as systemic misconduct was publicly exposed. Federal prosecutors presented a case that went beyond individual criminal charges. They portrayed a comprehensive pattern of institutional failure, highlighting the broader implications for defense contracting and corporate accountability. Catherine's initial investigation had become a catalyst for systemic change. Congressional. Representatives listened intently. Proposed legislative reforms were already being drafted, inspired by the comprehensive exposure of corporate misconduct. Catherine's work had transformed from a personal quest for justice to a blueprint for institutional reform. Media coverage captured the profound significance of the moment. No longer was this simply a story about corporate fraud. It was an examination of institutional integrity, of the complex dynamics that allow systemic misconduct to flourish. Sentinel Defense Technologies faced complete dismantling. Government contracts were revoked. Leadership faced criminal charges. The company that had once seemed untouchable was now a cautionary tale of corporate corruption. Catherine's personal transformation became as significant as the institutional accountability. She was no longer defined by her role as a whistleblower or a victim. She had become a comprehensive analyst of institutional behavior, a catalyst for systemic change. Veteran support networks celebrated more than a legal victory. This was a moment of collective validation. Each story of professional marginalization, each experience of institutional betrayal found recognition in this comprehensive exposure of corporate misconduct. Financial experts began developing new accountability mechanisms. Catherine's forensic techniques, her approach to identifying systemic fraud, became a new standard in corporate oversight. Universities incorporated her methodologies into courses on corporate ethics and organizational behavior. The psychological impact extended beyond the courtroom. Dr. Helena Ramirez's research, developed in collaboration with Catherine, provided unprecedented insights into institutional dynamics. They were mapping the complex psychological mechanisms that enable corporate misconduct. Government oversight committees began implementing comprehensive reforms. Whistleblower protection mechanisms were strengthened. Corporate accountability standards were redesigned. Catherine's work had exposed systemic vulnerabilities that extended far beyond a single company. Her relationship with her family had transformed. Her parents, once worried about her professional standing, now saw her as a national advocate for institutional integrity. Family dinners became discussions about systemic change, about the importance of individual accountability. The financial settlement provided more than personal compensation. Catherine established a foundation supporting veterans navigating professional challenges, providing legal support, career development resources, and psychological counseling. Speaking engagements transformed from personal storytelling to comprehensive, systemic analysis. Corporate boards, government agencies, academic institutions all sought her insights into institutional behavior, corporate ethics, and systemic accountability. As the legal proceedings concluded, Catherine understood that accountability was more than punishment. It was about creating mechanisms for fundamental institutional transformation. Each exposed mechanism of fraud was an opportunity for systemic redesign. The veteran community saw her as more than a whistleblower. She had become a comprehensive advocate, transforming individual pain into a movement for institutional integrity. Her journey was a testament to the power of persistent, principled action. Transformative accountability was not an endpoint. It was a continuous process of institutional evolution, of creating systems that prioritize integrity over institutional preservation. The courtroom was just the beginning. The landscape of professional relationships had fundamentally transformed. Catherine Riley's journey had redefined not just her personal narrative, but the entire ecosystem of corporate accountability, veteran support, and institutional integrity. Her relationship with Sentinel Defense Technologies had evolved from an employer-employee dynamic to a comprehensive case study of corporate misconduct. What had begun as a personal betrayal had become a transformative national conversation about workplace ethics, institutional transparency, and professional accountability. Former colleagues who had initially distanced themselves now sought her insights. Mark Henderson, her previous supervisor, reached out through intermediaries, acknowledging the systemic failures that had created the toxic environment. Reconciliation wasn't about personal forgiveness, but about institutional learning. Thomas Green's professional rehabilitation became a powerful narrative of collaborative transformation. Together, they developed training programs for financial professionals, creating mechanisms to identify and prevent corporate fraud. Their partnership represented a new model of professional redemption and collective accountability. Elena Rodriguez and Miguel Santos became more than professional allies. They were architects of systemic change. Their collaborative approach to investigating corporate misconduct expanded beyond Catherine's initial case, creating comprehensive frameworks for institutional oversight. The veteran community transformed from a support network to a powerful advocacy platform. Catherine's work had exposed the unique vulnerabilities faced by military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. Professional development programs, legal support mechanisms, and psychological resources emerged from this collective effort. Academic institutions began integrating her experiences into comprehensive curricula. Case studies, research programs, and professional development courses explored the complex dynamics of whistleblowing, institutional accountability, and professional resilience. Government agencies developed new oversight mechanisms inspired by her investigation. Whistleblower protection programs became more robust. Corporate accountability standards were redesigned to address the systemic vulnerabilities she had exposed. Her relationship with her family underwent a profound transformation. What had once been a dynamic of concern and uncertainty became a collaborative exploration of institutional change. Family gatherings became strategic sessions, discussing systemic reform and professional integrity. The financial settlement from the Sentinel investigation became a catalyst for broader change. Catherine established a foundation supporting veterans, navigating professional challenges, providing legal support, career development resources, and psychological counseling. Professional speaking engagements evolved from personal storytelling to comprehensive systemic analysis. Corporate boards, government agencies, and academic institutions sought her insights into institutional behavior, corporate ethics, and accountability mechanisms. Media representation shifted from a narrative of individual struggle to a broader examination of institutional dynamics. Catherine became recognized not just as a whistleblower, but as a comprehensive analyst of corporate behavior and systemic change. Her relationship with the legal system transformed. What had begun as a personal, legal battle became a collaborative process of institutional reform. Attorneys, government investigators, and policymakers sought her insights in developing more robust accountability mechanisms. The psychological support network she had developed became a comprehensive resource. Dr. Helena Ramirez's research, developed in collaboration with Catherine, provided unprecedented insights into the psychological mechanisms of institutional misconduct and professional resilience. Technology companies began developing innovative solutions inspired by her forensic techniques. Advanced data analysis, AI-driven fraud detection systems, and blockchain-based accountability mechanisms emerged from her comprehensive approach to institutional transparency. Catherine's professional identity was no longer defined by her experience with Sentinel. She had become a comprehensive consultant, speaker, and advocate for institutional integrity. Her work extended far beyond a single corporate investigation. The veteran community saw her as a transformative leader. She had created a comprehensive support ecosystem that addressed the unique challenges faced by military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. Professional development, legal support, and psychological resources became her primary focus. Her relationship with professional ethics underwent a fundamental reimagining. Accountability was no longer about punishment, but about creating mechanisms for institutional learning and transformation. Each exposed mechanism of fraud became an opportunity for systemic redesign. Speaking engagements took her across the country, from corporate boardrooms to military bases, from academic institutions to government agencies. She was no longer just sharing a story. She was providing a comprehensive framework for institutional accountability. The financial industry began to recognize her as a critical voice in corporate ethics. Her forensic techniques, her approach to identifying systemic fraud, became a new standard in corporate oversight and institutional transparency. As years passed, Catherine's initial investigation with Sentinel became just one chapter in a larger narrative of systemic transformation. She had redefined the relationship between individual accountability and institutional change. The journey was never about personal vindication. It was about creating a more transparent, accountable, and ethical professional ecosystem. The small conference room overlooking the Rocky Mountains became a symbol of Catherine Riley's transformed journey. 10 years after exposing the Sentinel Defense Technologies fraud, she stood before a group of emerging veteran professionals, her story no longer a tale of personal betrayal, but a blueprint for systemic change. Her foundation had become a comprehensive support network for veterans navigating professional challenges. What had begun as a personal quest for accountability had evolved into a national movement addressing the complex intersection of military service, professional development, and institutional integrity. Technology had become a critical tool in her mission. Advanced data analysis platforms, developed in collaboration with cybersecurity experts, now helped veterans identify potential workplace risks. Machine learning algorithms could now detect patterns of institutional misconduct with unprecedented precision. Congressional legislation bore the marks of her comprehensive investigation. Whistleblower protection laws had been significantly strengthened. Corporate accountability standards now included rigorous mechanisms for internal oversight, directly inspired by the insights she had uncovered during the Sentinel investigation. Thomas Green, once a junior accountant who had risked everything to support her investigation, now led the forensic division of her foundation. Their collaborative work had transformed the landscape of corporate financial transparency. What had begun as a shared moment of professional risk had become a comprehensive approach to institutional accountability. Elena Rodriguez and Miguel Santos had expanded their professional collaboration into a multidisciplinary consulting firm. Their work bridged legal, technological, and psychological approaches to institutional integrity. Catherine's initial investigation had become a foundational case study in their comprehensive approach to organizational ethics. The veteran community had been fundamentally transformed. Professional development programs, legal support networks, and psychological resources now provided comprehensive support for military personnel transitioning to civilian careers. Catherine's work had exposed systemic vulnerabilities and created mechanisms for addressing them. Academic institutions had integrated her methodology into comprehensive curricula. Case studies, research programs, and professional development courses explored the complex dynamics of whistleblowing, institutional accountability, and professional resilience. Her journey was now studied as a critical moment in understanding institutional behavior. Government agencies had redesigned oversight mechanisms based on the insights from her investigation. Interdepartmental collaboration, advanced forensic techniques, and more robust whistleblower protection programs had become standard practice. The ripple effects of her initial investigation continued to expand. Her relationship with her family had become a collaborative exploration of systemic change. Her parents, once worried about her professional standing, now saw her as a national advocate for institutional integrity. Family gatherings became strategic sessions discussing social innovation and professional ethics. The financial industry had been fundamentally reshaped. Her forensic techniques for identifying systemic fraud had become a standard approach to corporate oversight. Financial institutions now implemented comprehensive accountability mechanisms that went beyond traditional compliance approaches. Media representation had evolved from a narrative of individual struggle to a broader examination, of institutional dynamics, Catherine was recognized not just as a whistleblower, but as a comprehensive analyst of corporate behavior and systemic change. Her insights were sought by national publications, documentary filmmakers, and international policy forums. Technology. Companies had developed innovative solutions inspired by her forensic techniques. Advanced data analysis, AI-driven fraud detection systems, and blockchain-based accountability mechanisms had emerged from her comprehensive approach to institutional transparency. The psychological support network she had developed had become a critical resource for understanding institutional behavior. Dr. Helena Ramirez's research, developed in collaboration with Catherine, provided unprecedented insights into the psychological mechanisms of corporate misconduct and professional resilience. Speaking engagements took her around the world. From corporate boardrooms to international policy conferences, from military bases to academic institutions, she shared a comprehensive framework for understanding institutional accountability. Her message extended far beyond her initial investigation. Her Foundation had become a global platform for professional integrity, support programs for veterans, legal resources, professional development initiatives, and technological innovation created a comprehensive ecosystem of support and accountability. The financial settlement from the Sentinel investigation had been transformed into a powerful mechanism for systemic change. Scholarship programs, research initiatives, and support networks now provided comprehensive resources for veterans and professionals committed to institutional integrity. As she looked out over the Rocky Mountains, Catherine understood that her journey was never about personal vindication. It was about creating a more transparent, accountable, and ethical professional ecosystem. Each challenge had been an opportunity for transformation. The horizon continued to expand, and Catherine Riley was still moving forward. If you enjoyed this powerful story of courage and transformation, please subscribe to our channel. Join us in celebrating stories of resilience, accountability, and the power of standing up for what's right.